aloud. Got it.
Welcome, welcome to the Haunted Hacker podcast, and this is the first one for December. Um, and tonight we have Siuzdak. I'll introduce him here in a second. Good friend of mine. Was just on Hannity. We're going to recap some of that juicy information from Hannity. Nothing real big in the news except for if you haven't watched the Christmas episode, the 15-minute episode from I guess it was last week or the week before. We gave away $10,000 to Tyler Robertson, a veteran, for his cybersecurity career path. So we're going to be giving out probably another 10,000 in January and hopefully another 10 in June. So stay tuned. Kurt, it's a pleasure to have you again on the show. Good friend of the show.
My honor. One more time. I mean, how nice it is. Like, you haven't called, you haven't written. I am so happy to be here. The last time I was here, I was just saying, I was riding, it was a 24-hour show, and halfway through I decided to go ride my bike and rode it in the dark while I listened and talked on the show. It was actually fabulous. Yeah, it's cool. Like I said, thank you very, very much again.
Absolutely. It's hard to believe that it's been a year already, over a year since that last episode.
Amazing.
It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, this is a second year that we've been on the air and the second year that we've had the listeners, and it still keeps going. I don't know what keeps it going though.
How nice is it to have the people? I mean, it's
exactly.
real. I mean, that is, having an audience and having people that are interested in politics, government, the hacking part of it. I mean,
sure.
Just phenomenal. Phenomenal.
So speaking about phenomenal and government and hacking, let's talk about the Hannity show. I get this message from you that you're going to be on the Hannity show, and I listened to it, and it was really good. I heard you guys talking about the skiff and some of the stuff about Trump and the Mar-a-Lago debacle. Yeah. So why don't we recap that? Tell us about the Hannity show and what you guys talked about.
Well, I'll get into background. I'm an attorney. I teach hacking at Quinnipiac University. I'm a retired FBI agent for 24 years. We probably considered the most, I know this, most dangerous lawyer in the FBI. I know that because someone's told me that. Also voted most likely person to be suicided by the federal government in this decade, which is a guarantee, right? After you hear the Hannity show. Right. And I also have the honor of representing mostly FBI agents who come into problems with the FBI. Now, I can tell you how not to get in problems. Here's how you don't get into a problem with the FBI. Okay, you go to work, you hit the gym. Mm-hmm. Spend about 2 hours in the gym, go meet your friends, go get a cup of coffee, come back, check out the newspapers, you come do that go to lunch, drive around in your Buick car, listen to the good time, what they call the good time radio, and then go home. That's how you don't get into trouble in the FBI. If you do work in the FBI, you put yourself in peril. Now, sure. It is the FBI has so many rules. They don't even make some of them don't even make sense, but they contradict each other. And I once got OPR, sent to internal investigation, because I spent $6 on gas. And they couldn't figure out why I spent $6 on gas. Nobody would spend $6 unless they're putting it into their own personal car or into a red can. I'm like, well, hey, you gave me a Prius, okay?
Which is like a little can.
Yes, and it took and I drove it around Washington for about an hour, and I filled it up. So I got subject to administrative discipline for that. I had one guy a friend who got rear-ended, and he got punished by the bureau for being in a car accident. So the bureau is very finicky. If you are part of a company that has 50 pages of rules, they may be for you. If you have 5 pages of rules, I tell people, if you have a policy for cybersecurity, it's 5 pages, 10 pages tops, but 5 pages. If you have a 50-page policy, it's unusable. Now you can have procedures, but not policy. Right. But the FBI has 5,000 pages of policy, and they have something which they call a policy implementation guide, which is referred to as a PIG. Now, you're not allowed to call it a PIG anymore. I know this because I was actually in a meeting where I referred to it as the PIG, and they got chastised by the upper management. I'm like, we have acronyms for everything. Like, right. That's not what you don't use. And so they have 5,000 pages. The FBI whistleblower, every FBI agent, every FBI employee is a mandatory reporter. They're not whistleblowers. If an FBI agent sees misconduct, they are required to report it. If they commit misconduct, they are required to report this. Now, I've reported myself multiple times. I mean, I walked into a skiff with a phone, hung out in there for 8 hours, and then the phone rang. I'm like, oh man. I didn't realize it. Everyone looked at me like I was a fool. I walked out with the shame, walked right over to my security guy, put the phone on his desk, said, hey, I screwed up. And they said, well, there's a form. Congratulations, Kurt, you get to fill out a form. And they call it e-pass. Filled out the form, and they walk back up, bang, on the hand, don't do it again. If you do that multiple times in a skiff, which is a special compartmentalized information area, so you can't have electronics in these skiffs, you'll be thrown out of the skiffs. You'll lose your clearance. The skiffs are where all the secrets are held, and we're talking secrets like, forget about crime. It's the president, Area 51, whatever there is out there going on. It's going to be in a skiff because it has to be. Because if you're talking about, the biggest thing is really human assets. If you're talking about what people are doing to help the FBI, you cannot let the particulars get out, because just by letting the particulars get out, the adversaries can identify them.
Right.
And so you talk about those, especially national security, in a skiff. And there are rooms in the FBI that are just sealed, and there are rooms in the government where you would never bring that type of phone. And I will tell you this: I went to a meeting before I was going overseas, and the first place I went was a skiff, and they sent me in there and they explained to me what the rules were.
Right.
Then they took me to another skiff and they gave me they put a life insurance policy in front of me, and they said this life insurance policy has no war exclusion, no suicide exclusion, and it's part of the because that's part of the job. Now none of that was secret. It's actually a company allowed this agency to be able to provide that to me because of the type of work I was doing. And they're like, look, suicide's part of the job, getting killed in war is part of the job. But what happened in the first skiff was stuff that would never leave that skiff.
Right.
And that is the stuff that you die for in war and that you kill yourself for, because if you get captured, you're done. There's a guy we have one retired FBI agent who spent the last 20 years, 15 years in a cell in Iran. We will never get out if he's still alive. He'll never get out. But there are some secrets in the government. It's hard to believe that there are, but there are some secrets where you would not want anybody to be captured knowing those secrets.
Right.
And I think the message of here's the information. Oh, by the way, the next room is if your wife gets an extra $1 million if you cap yourself because of what happened in the previous room. That tells you everything you need to know.
Exactly.
And that actually happened. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that scares someone more. You're like, the pucker factor goes up going, wow, man, that is really wrong. That is so wrong.
In the military, they used to have the legend or the myth was they used to have Marines staying outside the skiff that had a bullet for each person in that skiff.
Yeah.
In case you get boarded or compromised. And I know with like a lot of the EP3, like Orion, some of those planes, like immediately the first thing they tell you is how to discard the information, destroy it, and what to do if you can't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the policies, the particulars, and the particulars of how you do this stuff is amazing. That the military personnel are really highly competent. I mean, literally, you're going to burn the building down before you have this. I have been handed hand grenades, thermite grenades, saying, if there's an issue here,
that's it.
That's it. And that's how important it is. Now, if in the FBI, the senior 7th floor of the FBI is all executives. Mm-hmm. And I went on, a reporter called me up, Carrie Pickett, great reporter, doesn't like corruption. And she did a story, and the FBI actually came out and said the story was about Assistant Deputy Director, I think it's Paul Abate, about the fact that he was carrying around a cell phone in another skiff in another facility for a year. And the FBI, now, if I'm in the FBI, the only time the FBI is ever going to mention me is one, if they're condemning me, and two, if they've arrested me and are seeking the death penalty, right? That's how the FBI is going to be for me.
Right.
But the FBI came out and said, "Oh, we're absolutely defending Paul Abate." When does the FBI ever come out? Usually, you say we're going to open up an inquiry to determine whether the facts are true. Not in 10 minutes tell you it's not true or that's a false. Because how would they know unless Paul Abate lied to him? Which, in case he did, or which in case if he got the information, he did. But the media people wouldn't know that, and they came out and defended someone personally, which I think is appalling, because the FBI should be about the facts. Forget about whether you like me or not. The question is whether Paul Abate did this. Now, I actually know I've been in skiffs where it's prestigious to carry for the senior executives to carry the phones in the skiff. And part of the reports to Congress was that fact that there were competitions with FBI executives to get information up to Mueller. So the executives would carry that so they could be the first one to report on, Joe Schmo, the Arab, or Joe Schmo, the Somali, who's trying to blow up the U.S. And that's why they're carrying. But it became a matter of prestige to walk around. I walk around, they shoot me. The Marine takes the bullet. They walk around, they win. But evidently he did this, and he's now the deputy director. Now, if I compromise the security of the FBI for a year, I don't care who you are. I think you should be removed.
Didn't Robert Smith do that at one point? And
they get charged.
Right.
Yes. Jail time. You do this, you go to jail. I do this, I go to jail. I'm up in ADX prison in Colorado, in a prison alone. Yes, but what happened with him? The FBI is defending him. Now, the FBI defending him, we refer to that as corrupt.
Right.
Right? Because the FBI shouldn't be defending people. So anyway, so the FBI condemned me for it. Said, how would I know? Because I only have all these people. I have one half of the FBI whistleblowers are my client, give or take. But I think the number is, we don't know how many there are, but it appears to be about half.
Wow.
So for sake of argument here. But anyway, so as soon as I come out and say this, and then the condemnation from FBI headquarters, then I get another phone call from people who say, hey, by the way, Kurt, I just want to tell you, never met you before, but I'm also an FBI agent. And I want to tell you because I'm the guy who does the sweeping of the electronic sweeping of the area. And I was responsible for the whole thing. And oh, by the way, this guy, it's not just that the 7th floor had dozens of electronic devices inside Ray's skiff and Abate's skiff presently. In fact, and they told him not to report it. Now, if I'm the Russian, now if I'm the Russians or you, and I want to own the FBI, I just sit across. They have
parabolic antenna.
Yes, I'm like, and it's a parabolic antenna, and you're sitting, but there's a great coffee shop that faces right across the street. I would be sitting in there with a big, huge antenna right in my briefcase. I'd sit there all day having coffee. I'd own the whole place. How to believe that doesn't happen? If we're sweeping it for countermeasures, somebody's sweeping it to find out if there's actually, information and electronics being emitted from there.
Exactly. And there's actually a box that's about the size of a small notebook called H4unt3d. And it actually picks up GSM and
I got one.
Yeah, right. So
yes!
it's really easy to do that, especially like in a location like I'm at where the FBI is directly line of sight out my window.
Does it work?
It works.
Oh, no, yeah.
I heard it works.
Wait. Before it's HackRF, right?
HackRF.
That's okay. Now, what's the company that makes that?
It's a Hack5 is where I got.
They sell it. Yeah, the Hack5 is great, but there's a company there's a company. It's a guy's name that makes it. It's great because it emulates or able to receive from every frequency, right?
Yep. And there's
Cutlet.
Evil GSM 2 that actually helps you collect MZ information regarding each endpoint that's connecting to that tower. So it's a lot of information, a lot of data.
Now, did the RF, the hack or the RF, did that cost you $15,000 or $20,000?
No, not at all. You could probably build one for free.
Yeah, or pay what, $200 if that? I mean, it's
200, $300, yeah.
very difficult to use too, right?
Right, right.
Okay, so this is trivial, right? This is a trivial hack to get to actually take
Very
this.
trivial, yeah.
Very trivial. I mean, it's not even worth it's so bad that they would leak that type of material, that type of information outside, that just for that alone, Paul Abate should step down.
Right.
Let's be a man about it. He should step down. I mean, if I was there, that's what I would do, because I violated the rules. I didn't have the FBI media telling me I did, that protecting me. But what does that say for everyone else? What's so anyway? So that was the skiff issue, is the fact that the most secret information and in the world, from the most and let's put it this way: when you look at the FBI right now, the FBI is the most powerful law enforcement agency in the known universe,
and the most corrupt.
Well, I mean, well, there's some police departments that are out there, but I mean, that's for the power it has. It shouldn't be corrupt at all. It's too valuable. This stuff is too valuable to be corrupted one bit. Now, when I was over in Iraq in 2009, General Petraeus was there. It was a surge, 2008 and 9. And they decided they were going to do quantity first for getting law enforcement. We'll get quantity first, quality second. Bring in make the quantity and find the officers and then make them into great officers. But that doesn't work.
Right.
You have to have the quality first and build the core. Then you have the quantity, because one corrupt guy will hurt a department. 2 corrupt guys will hurt a department. 5 corrupt police officers or FBI agents will destroy a department. You don't have to look at the people hands. And we have people in jail that have suffered, or that we have suffered the wrath of these guys, just one of them. And now you have and I'm not sure which is worse when you have a guy like Hansen,
Robert Hansen.
Yeah, who sold stuff to the spies, or you have these knuckleheads who are giving it away for free.
Well, and the funny thing too, you talk about the skiffs and how this is happening on the 7th floor. For those of you who don't know, after Robert Hansen, the FBI created a SOC within the FBI headquarters at the Hoover Building.
Yes.
So I can't remember if it's like the 5th floor where they have the SOC. And so they monitor all of the FBI headquarters networks and all the assets there in the building. And this is occurring 2 floors up from the SOC.
I've never heard of the SOC. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Never heard of it. Don't know anything about it.
Yep.
Can't. Okay. And here's the thing: you have a bunch of very dedicated people that will actually that will do whatever it takes to protect the material. Yeah. This is that. I mean, you can't understate how important this is, because there's somebody who is providing information. Say they're in Uganda and they're providing information. That information gets back to Uganda that this guy is providing it. They're going to kill him right away, right? That they're dead. Any country, if you have spies, they're going to kill them. That's what they do to spies, except for the U.S.
Or make them jump out of windows at resorts.
Yeah, I know. It's, there's a lot of people who die in hotel rooms. I mean, it's just one of those. Even DC, there's a fair amount of people who die in hotel rooms.
Yeah, like Wormwood. I think that was a great documentary series that I watched, where the CIA was messing with LSD and tossed that dude out the window in New York.
Yeah, if it is it's those are all secrets.
Yeah,
I can't believe that the CIA would actually ever do that. They're just the good people.
They're job hazards,
Look, you have to protect your secrets.
Right.
It costs a lot of money and a lot of treasure, a lot of lives to be able to obtain those secrets.
And not to mention, like, the Hoover Building is right down the street from Embassy Row.
Yes.
And people who don't know DC, Embassy Row is where all the foreign embassies in the U.S. house their people. And this is right down the street from the Hoover Building.
It's not. Well, I mean, I just like the fact that the coffee, I can't remember what the coffee shop is. It's not Starbucks. It's yellow.
Yeah.
But it's, you could literally sit there and look up at the director's suite area and have coffee all day.
Yeah.
And honestly, you'll have FBI agents talking shop in that coffee shop, but you can stick that antenna right there. No one's going to do anything as long as you're buying coffee,
Right.
and just suck it up. I mean, it's nuts.
And the antennas that we use are not large antennas. The antenna that I use for pen test and red teaming literally fits in a backpack.
Yes,
And I can walk by a building and pick up every single
everything.
GSM signal out of that building, out of a skyscraper, with just a backpack.
How I mean, all someone would have to do. I mean, imagine how easy it is to actually get someone to work in that store and
Simple.
just and then they have a garage. They have a parking garage right there. They could drop. I mean, you could make anything, drop it right out front, off on the side, something's discreet. I mean, that RF is probably about that big,
Yeah.
5 inches by 4
5 inches by 4. Yeah.
Hook up an antenna, boom, you're in business. And
Yep.
and all of a sudden you're collecting all the secret data and turning on a cell phone speaker, little tricky, but all you have to they have this thing called the internet. Where
Yeah.
you
You
can go
can
online.
watch my YouTube channel and learn how to
There.
hack Androids remotely.
Look, damn. Okay, there we are. So so the idea that they would do this but no one said they've stopped. Now, Paula Bate also had another. What I love. Paula Bate was from New York, so he worked in New York with me, and people would say he's arrogant. People would say a lot of different things, all of which may or may not be true. He clearly worked in New York. I believe this. I believe the information about him carrying the cell phone around because I've seen it.
Right.
I've seen that from a bunch of people, and that's consistent with how executives in the FBI are. But the one that really blew me away was the fact that one of the protected disclosures comes in and says, "Hey, by the way, Paula Bate has a girlfriend, and that girlfriend was in the Office of General Counsel." Now, this isn't me. This is actually a protected disclosure that went to Congress.
Right.
So this is in Congress. Had a girlfriend. She was about to get fired because she was not that good at her job. Now, you could get fired in the FBI by being very good at your job. So just because someone says you're getting fired does not mean you're going to have been you're going to have done anything wrong. But all of a sudden she stopped getting the process of getting fired because she started dating Paula Bate, and then she got shipped off. And then the rumor was, and this is what the protective disclosure said, was she got a free trip to a university to go to law school.
Wow.
On the government's dime. Now, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's what this agent or this employee was saying was, hey, by the way, now, when you're in the Office of General Counsel, anyone who knows this has a lot of access to information. So, but then the rumor came out that, hey, she's over in, I think, the Detroit or Chicago office. And the protected disclosure came out. So about a week ago, I got a phone call from another one of my friends who's over in Chicago. Said, "Kurt, what you did to that poor lady was terrible." I'm like, "Why?" She goes, "Because she never once came to our building to work where she's supposed to be working." He goes, "But she had to run back and work now. But she's actually walking around the parking lot because she doesn't know where to go." Oh my God. She goes, "I blame this on you." So if you have a program where you could send someone for a master's degree, you give that to your most exceptional person.
Right.
You give it to the people that are forget about exceptional, hardworking. Give it to the hardworking person that spent 19 years doing some job that no one else wants to do and doing that, whatever it is. And really, if you are sweeping a floor in a skiff, you have all of the same security clearances as the person that's running the army.
That's reading the information. Yeah.
Yeah, that is this. Everyone who's in there is trusted, but give it to that person. Let them go to school, even if they're sweeping the floor or what. And it's still, that's an important job, sweep the floor. But go on a year sabbatical.
Right.
The idea now the person's walking around trying to find a place to sit and work because someone disclosed this is just too funny.
Yeah.
And again, we refer to that in the FBI as corruption.
Absolutely.
That's sad. That idea, if that's true, and again, for these are now why I said that this was a protected disclosure. The
Mhm.
whistle in the FBI, there's there's a protected disclosure, and it's different than in the real world. Because in the real world, if you are a whistleblower for a corporation,
Mhm.
cha-ching, cha-ching, you bring in
Right.
money. That's why people do it. For the IRS, they bring in money.
Right.
FBI agents, the only thing they get by reporting wrongdoing and going to a whistleblower is they get to keep their job. That's
And put
all it
on
does.
and
It
put on a list, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, you're done. You're done. Your career's
Yeah.
over. But the whistleblower court provides no compensation really other than getting your job. So keeping it. So I represent people in that court. Now, before me, and I went to that court, there were only 4 people in FBI history who won, and none of them stayed in the job.
Why would you want to though? Because you'd be walking around with a target on your back, right?
To destroy the place from within. I mean, to change it, to change it for the better, to change it for the better. We're
Right.
gonna come on. You don't. Those are the people you don't want to leave.
That's very true though.
That's true. If you want, because it's in the FBI, it's okay to make mistakes. You just have to admit you made a mistake and be accountable, and then you should move on, because everyone makes mistakes, and you don't want to do all this work to get somebody, have them make a mistake, and then say, well, you're out. But the surest way, if you make a mistake, say sexual harassment, you're not getting fired. If you report someone for sexual harassment, you're getting fired,
Exactly.
which is crazy. So anyway, okay, so that's what we were talking about on Hannity, going on about the difficulty with the whistleblowers and how many there are and stuff. It was quite interesting. I thought. I mean, I enjoyed doing it.
It was a really good interview too, because, thinking back to like with my interaction with the FBI and how they deal with, like informants and meetings and stuff like that, it brought up a lot of questions for me, because it was like, I was never checked at any of our meetings if I was carrying a cell phone, if
Yeah.
I was recording anything. The agents never asked me. And
Yeah.
part of me is like, well, maybe they already knew, maybe they had somebody in a parking lot, but no, I mean, common sense says that they were probably just lax on that. And I could have carried any kind of recording device I wanted to. They wouldn't have known.
That's right. Well, here's the thing. First of all, if you're carrying a recording device, that would mean that you're trying to catch them for doing something wrong, and
Right.
hopefully they're not doing anything wrong. Hopefully they may have a recording device.
Right.
But I would actually, if someone told me, I've had people bring, for informant meetings, have people bring guns, people
Mhm.
bring recording devices. I'm like, I'm not going to do anything wrong. You want to record it, fine. I said,
Right.
more importantly, as looking at an informant, and really, there are so many people who are human sources for the FBI that are trusted by the FBI, who may have done something wrong, maybe they haven't, maybe they're doing it for money, but they provide a huge asset to the FBI, and they should be treated with respect and I mean, with dignity and respect. And if you can't treat if you don't trust your source,
Mhm.
you probably shouldn't
How
have
good
them.
is that source? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I would. I mean, funny. My sources were my sources were people that I'm sure they would consider me a friend,
Mhm.
and to the extent that I could consider them a friend, I would. I had one guy who got arrested. He was outside of some event, like it was a church event, and the police officers were letting all the executives from one company in, and leaving everyone aside, so they're treating one company differently.
Right.
And he reported this. He stopped the police officer, said, that's corrupt. You let everyone in, and the cops arrested him on the spot. And
Oh, wow.
and then he called me up. I'm like, I mean, I can help you out, but that would look very strange considering the value of what you're helping us out. And he goes, but I'm guilty of sin. I'm like, I know that, but I'll let you choose. What would you rather do? Have an FBI agent come in and compromise you, or work this out and we'll figure something out later on?
Right.
And what was funny about that was he actually said, you're right. So he took a plea, which I told him not to. I mean, I can't tell him. I said, like, Jury trial, son.
Right.
That's what jury trial. But he's like, I don't want to deal with that. I take a plea. And then Siuzdak came out like 3 months later and had his record expunged.
Wow.
Now, do you know the expungements happen so quickly, or can happen so quickly, that people may not even have records. So I see people walk around for 20 years with a record. I'm like, go get an expungement, and get an expungement, because why are you being plagued by something you did? I mean, I've done so many things wrong in my life, I can't count them. And why would you be plagued with? It's just human
Forever.
nature.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, I screwed that up again. It's only 3 times, and I mean, I'm not allowed to go into one country because I'm PNG, persona non grata. They told me if I come back, I can expect to have irons around my wrists and ankles.
Wow.
Because I'm protecting U.S. interests, not other countries' interests.
Right.
That's
Right.
just and what I did, I got away with, and they said, "You win this time." And I apologized. They said, and they said, "No, we get it, but understand what the rules of the game are. Next time you won't have diplomatic immunity. Next time you're gonna be locked up here." Okay, thank you. Thanked them profusely, actually, and because they could have locked me up and I'd have to get out. And nobody really wants to be in those jails in Middle East, Africa. No, bad.
Or even
Bad.
Mexico.
Mexico.
Right.
I just had a friend of mine who was in a psych ward in Mexico. What it takes to get into a psych ward in Mexico?
What did you do?
He went on a bender. I mean, I was like, dude, what kind of bender was that? He's like, I don't know. Well, that would explain why you're in the psych ward. Okay, so
Right.
so where were we? But it's damn it, I lost track my thought here of where we're going with this.
Corruption and
Yeah, it's corrupt. I mean, no, that wasn't what we talked about. What we're talking about is the value of human sources.
yeah.
But we're also in that. What I just told you, I think is more important, was that I don't care if people do something wrong,
Mhm.
you're accountable and you move on. And that even if somebody has been arrested, and they're helping us out, they're the same type of source as the guy who's an executive who's helping us out. There should be no difference in trust. If you can't trust your source, you shouldn't have your source. And this was coming into one of the issues I talked on Hannity about. Was there was a protected disclosure that related to a drug transaction out of Newark.
Mhm.
And before I talk about the drug transaction out of Newark, I got to talk about the rapist. And there was another protected disclosure who was talking about a guy who was harassing people, harassing women, sexual harassment, so much in the Newark office that he had a nickname of the rapist.
That's crazy.
Now I look at that guy is gone.
Right.
If I have one sexual harassment complaint I would pull that person, and I have done this, and said, you're just never going to do this again, right? That's, first of all, you will never do this again. Secondly, if you do it again, you'll be out of my unit immediately. And then what your performance report will look like, all it will talk about is why you're out of that unit.
Right.
That's how it should. You can end sexual harassment in the bureau in a second if you equate the misconduct with the performance. And the FBI actually separates the two. So executives who have multiple allegations of misconduct, sexual harassment, are never judged on that for performance.
And just for the record, agents have what level of clearance when they become an FBI agent?
Mandatory. It's
secret, right?
No, everyone has to be able to become have top secret.
Yes, right.
Yes. Now you only get to keep the clearance that you need.
Right.
And so all FBI facilities are at a secret level.
Right.
So if you need to go up to a SCIF and TS SCIF, they'll give it
cleared.
To you.
Yeah.
But like that, you're cleared like that. But that means the scrutiny increases tremendously, and you are technically under scrutiny. I'm under scrutiny.
Right.
The executives, Ray and Abate, well, they're.
See, that's why I bring this up, because these people that we're talking about, like the sexual harassment, the rapists, all this stuff, right? These are guys who have already gone through a security clearance, SF-86. They're secret and above, at least.
And how easy are they to compromise?
Yeah. Blackmail.
That's blackmail. Done. Done. Now I didn't learn about the rapist because of someone telling me this initially. I actually disclosed it to Congress, and when I have to, in order for a protected disclosure for my client to be proper, I have to go to a congressman. Now, the gentleman, Gomer, who was doing the interview, was actually a congressman. So the information I was providing to a congressman and also 2.4 million people, is that how many people watch Hannity every day or something like that?
Yeah.
That's actually a legal protected disclosure.
Right.
Now, the FBI probably says, wait a second, you did it on a radio show, but I never talked to the congressman in person other than on a radio show. So I have to make my protected disclosures. That's how you do it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Coincidentally, how did that work out? So I think the message there to why I've missed, the Representative Gomer is a great guy.
Mhm.
I've heard greats about it. Never talked to him that before that, and I think the message there is to the FBI that we wanted to test the information that you're going to see when the hearings come up next month or starting next month,
Right.
by having one person talk about them, which was me. Now I'm going to jump back to the rapist. So now the rapist isn't a rapist. The rapist is a guy who who sexually harasses people. But in the FBI, I can very much understand why you would have that moniker.
Right.
So I walk into a field office, the Newark field office, and I'm sitting there signing in and going through all the process. I'm not even in the FBI. An agent walks in and says, "Hey," to the person behind the desk, goes, "Hey, is the rapist still here?" I'm like,
Oh my God.
"What?" I'm like, "What?" And the lady goes, "No. They just gave him his OPR or his PRL, so he got his voluntary transfer to another office. So the Bureau, instead of punishing him, they gave him a voluntary transfer to another office." I heard all of that.
Bureau or Catholic Church?
Well, you know that the executives in the FBI refer to themselves as the College of Cardinals, right?
It doesn't surprise me.
Yes. Okay. So we are the ones who are we are the FBI. Not we. I'm not in it anymore. But the young men and women who are there are the last line of defense.
Right.
And they should be. And oh, by the way, people should be critical of what they're doing, because if you're not critical of what they're doing, they'll do whatever the hell they want.
Right.
But anyway, so they say what they say about the rapist. Now I pull my friend aside. Now I'm there for a reason, for a guy who's being targeted because he's a whistleblower. I looked at him, I said, "What are you talking? What's that?" He tells me this story. I'm like, "You got to be kidding me."
Right.
He's like, "No." He goes, "You have to understand, the boss here walks around the office telling people he wipes his buttocks with EEO complaints." Now, equal employment
Whoa.
opportunity EEO complaints are civil rights complaints.
Yep.
And the head of the FBI, the SAC, the special agent in charge, and the assistant SAC are the most powerful law enforcement in the state.
Mhm.
And their belief on internal complaints of sexual harassment they're meaningless. And he said that out loud. He actually also said that he was going to take care of me. Now I have yes, that was one of there were actually 3 death threats that came out of Newark.
Oh my
Now,
God.
one of them was a picture of Serpico on a book. I could send. It's actually interesting. I could send you.
How long ago was this, Kurt?
2.5 years ago.
Oh wow.
No, this came out. There was a book called Serpico where a police officer was shot in the face. I believe shot in the face, but survived.
Mhm.
And they found the book on an agent's desk who was a whistleblower, and the picture of Frank Serpico was removed, and the face of the agent was put on it.
Oh wow.
Yes. Now, anyone who's in the NYPD or knows about what happened to Serpico would consider that to be a death threat.
Right.
Same time, another agent who has an association vis-a-vis work with the country of Iran finds a picture of a General Soleimani.
Oh wow.
Now I knew
Who got
Soleimani.
droned? Who got droned?
That's one way of saying it, Assassinated's the other. Yeah, I mean, the Soleimani. Look, in fairness, yeah, he got hit by a drone right in the Baghdad airport, right coming out of the Baghdad airport.
Yeah.
He actually got it right next to where I lived, which was kind of sad. Soleimani I had met. Soleimani was actually one of the most moderate of the
Of the whole
generals.
regime.
Yes,
Right.
until the U.S. screwed him.
Right.
Like now he's going to be okay. Screw the U.S. But he actually had some. Um, I actually met him at a bar at a that was a bar. It was a tea shop in Baghdad where he came over, and he asked some very important questions about making sure some Americans were safe because he wasn't really interested in hurting Americans. So
Right.
I thought that was very good of kind of him. He also figured out the secret sauce on how to hurt America.
Mm.
And that's when and the secret sauce was he was having protests, but nobody was displaying guns. Because if you display guns, they can mow your butts down. But if
Right.
it looks like it's a peaceful protest, you
Can't do
probably can
anything.
take yes.
Or a wedding.
So so okay, so you have to bring over the predator and drone him and explain to the next guy what it's going to look like having those peaceful protests.
Right.
And they were peaceful protests. There were weapons obviously there, but they weren't being displayed. They're right outside the embassy and um, probably fair. Um, I have a problem with killing people in allied countries.
Mm.
Right? Iraq is an ally, right? That we helped them out. I mean, no one ever
We were
considers that.
running the country at that point, pretty much.
Right, yeah, right after, right, yeah, we had turned our stuff over, but the money kind of stopped going in. But there are people,
Mm.
and we don't want people targeting our generals like that.
Right.
I mean, that's the what would we do if they target our generals like that? We would have a real
It'd be a
problem with
war.
that. Yeah, it'd be a
Right.
war. Yeah, and but again, I have Soleimani was an enemy actor, but not everybody who dislikes the U.S. is actually playing for real.
Right.
Some people do it because it's part of the job, and the way they get promoted is by going up. And I'm not sure how certain he was that he was going to be as bad. He did run the IRGC,
Right.
but I mean, it was a fair. I guess if you're allowed to blow people away in other people's countries, he's a fair target. Um, but we it's amazing how we do that because so much for the the joke in the government's been for a long time surgical strikes. Well, not so surgical.
Yeah, I think some of them took place at weddings, and whole
Yeah.
wedding parties were destroyed.
Well, the wedding party video,
Mm.
which was first of all, if you go to a wedding in Kentucky, there's very possibly some guns there. I mean,
Right. Right.
if you go to parties in some places, you're going to have a few rifles, you're going to have fireworks, you're going to have whatever.
RPGs. Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that doesn't mean you get to blow them all away. And it
Right.
looked like they blew away a whole wedding party, and there were no enemy. There was just a big coming out of a mosque for a celebration and getting hit by a 500-pound bomb,
Right.
which is like that's like the big party pooper. I mean, it just doesn't do well for the party.
It's not rice. Right.
Oh, but again, well, but in fairness to the people on the ground, they're not they can order in a strike, but there's other people that are up higher who are supposed to tell them, no, that's not a good strike, or yes, and they should do it in real time.
Right.
And I look at that and that is painful to see a lot of people getting killed. If it was in Fallujah in the middle of right before the Battle of Fallujah, I would be like,
Different story.
maybe, or maybe you just made a lot more enemies.
Right.
Maybe you just pissed off everybody in town by doing that, and that's the Fallujah was never a friendly place in America and to America, but damn,
Yeah,
I mean,
Fallujah was one of the toughest strongholds that they fought against in that war
yeah,
from the
yes,
beginning.
and the Marines did a great job.
Yeah.
House to house, Stalingrad. That was Stalingrad. You talk about people fighting house to house.
Door to door. Yep.
Door to door, yeah, grenades going in every room, and it's a bloodbath. That the Marines did a great job in there. I mean, I remember listening to I went to Fallujah and did an interview there in Fallujah. I went there, I badged I'm with the FBI, and they're like, "Whoa, yeah, we love the FBI. We saw you on TV, yada yada. Yeah, we're happy to talk to you." He goes, "Oh, you're good. Those Marines, we hate them.
Really?
We hate them. They're not your escort's not Marines. I'm like, they are not Marines. They're good, solid people called Blackwater. They're okay. Saw them on TV too. They're good, honest
Whoops.
guys. So if you're gonna pick, using the the Marines, they will. Again, you never hear a Marine talking about the Japanese and any friendly people if they were in World War II. You
Right.
don't hear the Japanese talking anything good about the Marines, very seldom.
Right.
And that's going to be the case with people in Fallujah
Mm,
and with U.S. Marines because it was a no hold bar fight.
right.
And there was a lot of blood spilled. But yeah, so it's you have all that, and then you have the guys in the seventh floor blowing the secrets. You have a guy who's easily compromised, running around the FBI. So I'm going to get back to the drugs, and this is something I've talked to Congress several times about that. There's a head of a drug squad, or it's a violent crime squad in Newark. So
Mm,
it's amateur hour. That's all you can say about this. I've seen the records. I know what they say. I know how they look. I know how they should look. I know that the guys that actually reported this are probably, if I told you who they went against as who they were going against as undercovers, you'd be like, you got to be kidding. I mean, these are real agents that are reporting this. These isn't garbage. These are the best of the best. They report this one guy and say he went to a drug deal. And this is how I got a phone call, and it said, "Hey, I'm from Newark. This guy had this drug deal. It's bad. I heard about you. What do I do?"
mm,
So first of all, you haven't proved that you know anything about drugs. I believe you're an agent. Because I know you. I asked you the color of the floor, and you're at that place, and you knew it. Because only the FBI would have a colored floor that color. And but you haven't told me that you know anything about drugs, because you said this was a $500 drug transaction, and as an FBI agent,
500?
I wouldn't do $500. That's right. That's street level. That's not what I do.
Right.
And
Right.
I said, so I don't understand. What's the last drug transaction you did? He was like 500. I'm like, so you're a $500 drug transaction agent is complaining about another 500. He's like, no, Kurt. I did 500,000 myself personally with no
Oh,
one else. And oh, by the way, in order to get that stuff out of there, I had to go buy a few machine guns, and to do that to make sure it was safe, and I had to hire some people too. I'm like, give me the number, prove it, show it to me on paper. And I was in the bureau at that time, and so
right.
he gave me the file number. I looked at it, I said, holy cow, are you nuts? And then he said, oh, by the way, I have some. He had some combat experience over in Afghanistan, or in Afghanistan. But I said, how did this happen? So the agent, this agent went with his informant and told the guy to buy a brick of heroin. And in Newark, New Jersey, I'm going to give you how you know this, but it's a brick is
A kilo.
500. Well, no, in Newark, yeah, that's down south. It's 500 decks. You know, the
Oh,
little glassine bags.
yeah, yeah.
It's 50. I'm sorry, 50 decks of heroin that's sealed in a container, and it's basically wrapped up and taped, and nothing's coming out of that. When they package heroin, but it's all
Right.
branded. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you have to have a brand on every single one, so you know the quality and the source of your heroin. Like any good heroin user knows, they want to make sure they're getting the right stuff
Right.
for what they're paying for. So he the informant buys the brick, brings it back, and gives it to the agent. Now, at that point, the agent should pat this guy down, pull out the
Mm,
pockets, make sure there's nothing involved in that he has nothing there, and then leave.
right.
So that may or may not have happened, but when they get back to the office, they realize that the package had been cut open and one of the glassine bags was missing. Now, that doesn't happen accidentally
No.
with drugs, because drugs are packaged by pros. And so in the middle of a squad area, he calls up the informant and tells him he needs to get another package of heroin, another deck. Now, The deck has already been submitted to evidence saying there are 50 in there.
Right.
And if you get another deck from another source that's directed by an agent, that's tampering with evidence.
Right.
Now, if I was this guy's trainer, I would stop this immediately and say, you don't understand. This isn't about your informant stealing a deck of heroin. This is about there's another person out there who sold you the deck to you, and you're going to prosecute that other person. So now you're getting drugs from another source. The agent didn't have a good sense of what he was doing. That's my take on it.
Right.
But the person I know, his partner was sitting there and called up my person, said they're tampering with evidence. So they reported this, and both of those guys, they were selected for termination. The other people that were dealing with them were selected for removal. Everyone got removed. 2 people were tried to terminate, and they never touched the guy who bought the drugs.
Really?
Yes. Now that's still going on in court. Matter of fact, I have the indictment here. So what the prosecutors did was they did indictment against a gang. Now this gang was from the Marion Housing Project. There were 8 people involved. And the guy who bought the drugs, I mean, his name was Sticky. Now, poor Sticky, he may or may not be the best drug dealer in the world. He may have problems. I mean, he's from a bad part of town. He's selling drugs, bad Sticky. But he shouldn't be prosecuted for drugs that are being bought by FBI agents from different sources.
From somebody else, right?
That, and if that happens, that's called exculpatory information.
Right.
And that information has to be passed from the government to the defense attorney. Now I looked, I could not, maybe it's there, I couldn't find any information. I asked inside the FBI, did anything happen? Because something would happen to this agent if that was reported.
So basically the agents were trying to buy another deck of heroin to replace the one that
was
had
stolen.
been opened, and blame that other deck
Yeah.
from another source on Sticky, who
Yes.
sold the original deck.
Who's in jail right now.
Right.
Now, I find that if it happens on day one, now you may disagree with me. Here's my thought process. You can say, Kurt, that's corrupt from the minute. My thought process is, because it's such a low weight and this guy doesn't know what he's doing and he's trying to be the badass, that he didn't understand the dynamics of actually a drug transaction. Day one.
Right.
When he lied on the paperwork, then he's committing a felony.
Right.
I would say he would be terminated if he lied on the paperwork, which I've seen the paperwork. The paperwork's bad. A year later, if he doesn't report himself, he should be subject to indictment himself.
Right.
Because that's if we indict people for drugs, then we risk this. I mean, when you play with, you can agree, I mean, that playing with informants is probably the trickiest thing that an agent can do.
On both sides.
Yes.
For the informant and the FBI.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you see, I mean, I've had people call me up and ask me to help them out. And I said, look, first of all, it's going to be an overt relationship.
Right.
Secondly, it's not going to be a source. It's going to be an overt relationship, because I'm happy to, if someone's threatening the FBI, I'm going to tell the FBI. Secondly, you're going to pay me for it.
Right.
Right. Because I get paid for doing this stuff, So I'm not that expensive. But you have.
Each side has inherent risk.
Yes, and I have to go in there and go, do I drive down to? The U.S. attorneys know about this already. The U.S. attorney, one U.S. attorney, as soon as it became quasi-public, she left. Coincidentally, medical reasons, family, got to spend time with the family, whatever. She left right away, right after a deposition. She left. But that indictment's still out there, and I may take a ride over and say, to ride over to Sticky's mom and say, hey, Mom, got some bad news for you. You know those drugs? Some of the drugs I think were bought by your son. Sorry.
Right.
The other drug wasn't bought by your son.
Right.
If I'm you, I would be outraged, because I don't think if you were if you were Caucasian, that would fly.
No. Well, and not only that, but I mean, he's basically being framed. Yeah, he did commit crimes.
Yeah.
No doubt, but not the one that they're trying to get him for.
Well, they didn't put it. They didn't put an indictment. They left it out. Yeah, the indictment starts like a month after they did the buys, but the month after the buy. Oh, sorry, we forgot.
Forgot.
But the exclusionary rule in the U.S. basically says that the whole foundation is we would rather let 10 people go than put 10 guilty people go than put one innocent person in jail. And you know what? I get it, because if you don't get sticky this go around, you're going to get him next time. You're going to get him next time if he's not that smart.
Right.
And so so that's the thing. If the criminals don't do it because they're like most criminals. You can disagree with me. You may be, the evil one, but I'm not saying you're a criminal. Not saying that. But most of the time, people do things either because there's need or because they're weak.
Right.
And I will tell you, I agree with you on this. They need to do something. They need to prove they're right. They're weak. But drugs is weakness. They don't have money. They don't have and that's really, they have to be accountable, just like FBI agents.
Right.
But if they're real criminals, you'll do them. They'll come back. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer. If you let him go
customers.
once, they're going to come back.
Right.
And so that's the real shame here. And there was no need for any of this to happen. But there's no need for that guy to be a supervisor in the FBI for the last 5 years, even after it's been going on. He's remained as a supervisor. He was promoted.
That's insane.
It's ludicrous.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of kind of like the Good Old Boy Network back in the day, in law enforcement, where, the sheriff, small town sheriff, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And the whole fraternity idea, like the fraternal order police, right? The whole, tight knit, you look after my back, I'll look after yours. That's what it reminds me of.
It does. It does. Well, that brings up the why did this happen? It happened, I believe, because this agent had one of his relatives is a bigwig in headquarters.
There you go.
Boom, done. Now, I like the fraternal order of police, actually. Now, but there's a downside. There's a downside to having that type of organization, in that it sets up the us against them mentality.
Right.
And that's where the U.S. police have gone, as they have militarized for the last 20 years, and that has not been good for the FBI. It has not been good for the police. It has not been good for America. Then you have the FBI, which swings. Well, I won't say swings. They have the FBI who, during the Black Lives Matter protests, they have 6 FBI agents or not 6, I think more, who kneel in support of the Black Lives. Oh yeah, go online. Wow. And now we call that a violation of the Hatch Act.
Right.
Because that's a political statement. Now the agents, the FBI actually asked the Agents Association to give them gift cards in support. Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Wow.
You got okay. They give no. I had a shrapnel wound in my hand when a rocket blew up near me. No one gave me a gift card. They actually called up my wife and said I had been wounded, and when they found out that I had been a minor wound, they forgot to call up and tell her it was a minor wound. So she spent a day thinking I had a bullet through my stomach.
Wow.
Until I called her, "Hey, honey, how you doing?" And she was like, Are you
alive?
You alive? Yeah. No, anger.
Right.
How could you do that to me? I'm like, I had no idea they would call you and not tell me. And not that I need bravery, because I was actually running the other way like a bat out of hell as the rockets were landing around me. So there was no medal for bravery on that one. It was just sheer luck on my part.
Survival.
Yeah, rockets. So don't be brave around the Katusha rocket. It doesn't matter. Run. I actually had a guy named I will say his name, Don Bostic. Don Bostic's my hero. I was running towards the opening, and it was an armored door. The people were pulling the door closed because the rockets were literally coming in at the door. Now they're being shot from a place called Solder City.
Right.
I was running there. Bostic was holding the door open, forcing it open so I could get in, because other people there were going to close the door on my ass and leave me out there alone. He held the door open to get me in and allow me to go, and the people were literally crying, screaming and crying at him, trying to pull him away from that door and
Wow.
pull him out. Now, he is my hero. He's from Louisiana. That's the kind of person. I put him in for an award. They didn't give him one. They didn't give him. I mean, you sit, and this guy was literally standing out there. I think there were three. The salvo was right at us. Was 3 rockets within. The first one was hit. Second, I could hear the alarms go off. I was carrying this guy's bags, and some people that were out in a gunfight. They were out in a bad area, but I was carrying their bags as a matter of respect into the area. And the rockets came in. I got clipped by one of them. Got my body armor, got a little piece of something. But Don Bostic held the door for me. That's the FBI agents I know.
Yeah.
And he was standing there while rockets were coming in, so he could see. I mean, if you ever see a Katyusha rocket, you can actually see it coming in. That's the best part. And there's nothing worse than running at somebody and having their eyes go the size of saucers, going, "Oh shit, I'm dead. Whatever just came in behind me is going to kill me." Right. And he held the door, shut it. So you have those agents. I mean, you have a lot of them. I can name 100 examples of great agents doing great things in really difficult situations. The agent who actually reported this one agent, he calls me up. Kurt, he goes, I want to tell you something. Being a whistleblower in the FBI is the worst. I'm like, he goes, I just can't. It just kills everything you want to do. All you do is just think about it. And I'm like, what are the sounds in the background? And he's like, oh, there's somebody shooting at me. I'm like,
he's in a firefight talking about how depressed he is about the whistleblowing.
He is in a firefight talking about this, and I won't mention which one it is, but where it was right near his office. He responded, even though they told him not to do anything. He still went down there because that's what he did. He got trapped behind a wheel well of a car, and he was crouching down and figured at that time he was going to call me up and tell me, hey, Kurt, I want to complain about this. And there's guys shooting at him. There's cops shooting. They're screaming at him, get away from the car. He stands up. He walks across from the car to the building, and they're screaming, going, you need to run. It's really bad. They're shooting. He's like, you think it's bad here? You should see back at my FBI office. It's much worse for me back there. And I'm like, so he calls me up, and I'm like, you have to have your head in the game.
Right. He's
like, Kurt, I want to be in tears because I'm doing this for my country, and meanwhile, they're trying to fire me. I said, I know, but you have a family. I said, I get it. Your stomach is sick. You're all, and that's a true. That's true. That actually happened. And I'm like, if now you have to go back, you have to check to make sure that you go through the procedures to make sure that you're good for that fight. Because if you do something wrong, they're going to fire you for being technically wrong. And so he did. I walked him through everything, and he was good. But imagine you have guys like that, and those who you're trying to fire. And meanwhile, Sticky's in jail, and the other guy is the supervisor. And it's unexplainable. It's corrupt. So that, and again, this is all stuff that has been brought to Congress. This was a protected disclosure made to a congressman. Okay, I would have done it quietly, but 1.3 to 2.4 million people listening, and subtlety is my middle name. Yeah. So anyway,
here's a question I have for you. So looking at that situation and just looking back at some of the whistleblowing you've seen within the FBI, what is your honest opinion about what they did at Mar-a-Lago? And first of all, this is not something that's an isolated event. Like this is a known issue in the government with documents.
Can we jump one area before Mar-a-Lago?
Sure.
Okay. Sure. Twitter. Mm-hmm. I get a call from a reporter, says, hey, there's that. One of the reporters asked, hey, who's the person who's doing all the disclosures to the press for Twitter? And the Twitter goes, oh, it's a guy named James Baker. Now, James Baker, they're like, James Baker, the guy from the FBI? They're like, yeah, he used to be working in the FBI. James Baker was the general counsel for the FBI.
Right.
He's doing the disclosures on what should come out for the stuff that he was doing at Twitter. Come to find out, so a reporter told me this. I'm like, there's something wrong here. A reporter called me up. Actually, it was Carrie Pickett again, who's great, from the Washington Times. She called. I'm like, wait, there's something missing here. And what is it? I'm like, money.
Yeah.
What else is there? She said, well, there are evidently a lot more people that were hired by the FBI devoted to a program. So the FBI took executives, they retired from the FBI, and then they went to the Twitter to be hired for a particular program.
Oh, I get where you're going now.
Pay for play. So
Yeah.
$200,000 a piece for a job. You hire, evidently, someone told me a number as high as 80 that were hired.
Wow.
And evidently, they may have been censoring documents. Hey, this guy, right? One of the, it may not have been Pickett. One reporter called me up and said, hey, there was one person they had censored because he had 69 followers and he was saying threatening things about the FBI. 69 followers?
69.
Really?
And you're worried about that?
I know. That's how crazy it is. But evidently there were a lot of people devoted. Now, Twitter's not going to hire those people because FBI employees are notorious for getting terminated or for leaving the job after 1 year.
Right.
For a lot of reasons. One is they're not capable of surviving in any institution other than the FBI and prison.
Right.
You know, you're institutionalized. And two, they just don't know what they want to do. But to have all these people come over there and get devoted to projects, the Bureau is going to pay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they said there was $3.5 million. So I look at the math here. 80, figure $200,000 is kind of where if I was to hire them, they'd be worth about 25, 30 grand, but they're executives, so we'll give them at 200,000.
200, yeah.
Times that by 80 employees. So what are you looking at? So you're looking at 8 million, 16 million. Twitter's got to make a profit, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
you got to double that or triple it. But that's you're in this 32. Yeah, 30 to 60 million dollars maybe. I told the reporter, I'm like, my God, that's just pay for play.
Yeah,
that's all that is. I mean, why would you ever want FBI? Because they're going to turn all that those are informants.
Yep.
So you have walked around the rules for subpoenas by putting all your informants inside social media.
Yep.
Are you kidding me? That's outrageous. How I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say with that. You've just if that's true, and I'm praying it's not, you just set up a whole bunch of agents to blow away the First Amendment for people.
Not only that, but you look at some of the countries that we identify as communistic and state-run media. So now you have government bleeding into social media, still media, and we're getting pumped out from Twitter what they want us to see and what they want us to hear.
And we're talking about the same ones that can't actually stop sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Sexual harassment is the easiest thing in the world to stop in the Bureau. You could stop that in a day because all you do is you tell your executives, if you get caught, we'll have we'll remove you right then and there. If we look at it and we find there's cause to believe it, we'll remove you. We'll put you in another position for a year, and then if it comes out true, you're gone. But we won't let you lead troops while you're doing this. They have to do it. The Bureau is so sexist. What would you say? About 50% of the American population is female, give or take. Okay, only 20% of the Bureau's agents are female, and females serve an incredibly important part of the FBI because in a lot of jobs they're as good as at investigations as men. Just that simple. In fact, I would say I had a squad, and the best agents on my squad, the top 3 were females, and that wasn't even a close call. They worked so hard that and they all had families.
Right.
And one of them during COVID, I was like, "What are you gonna do? You lock people up and drag them to your house because they're not accepting prisoners at jail? What are you gonna do with it? You're gonna arrest people while you're having the first week of COVID when everything's locked down?" And she's like, "If I have to, yes." I'm like, okay, whatever. Don't do it. But just keep the indictment there, keep the complaint, but don't arrest them. I have to tell the women that. I didn't get that call from men. from a male telling me I want to do the arrest. But so and they're great SWAT operators. Well, they can't be SWAT. Look at any woman could be a SWAT operator if you're working. You may have to work out harder, stronger, better,
Right.
but it doesn't take. People don't run through doors and run 100-yard dashes. They do methodical attacks. If they're doing dynamic attacks, every woman there could do it. Very much so. The FBI did not let women be in SWAT operators for a while. They now are starting to do that. But sexual harassment is endemic in the bureau. I had one client. It made New York Post. She was in Newark, actually. She was in Newark. You know what? The rapist. She was actually one of the victims of the rapist.
Oh wow.
So she goes to headquarters to flee from the guy, and she goes to Vegas, and she's feeling bad. So she goes to employees assistance, EAP, employees assistance program counselor.
Mm-hmm.
The guy sends her, the EAP guy, who's a supervisor, sends her a dick pic. This is not the rapist. This is the other guy. It's a photo of a candy-colored dildo. Now it's actually in the New York Post. If you can fact check me on this, it's in the New York Post. And so you have this guy doing sending her this. They left him in place. And in fact, 2 weeks after this happened, they threatened to OPR her. OPR means Office of Professional Responsibility, getting punished. They threatened to send her for administrative punishment for not being professional, and they gave him an award for professionalism.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you. It's actually an indictment. Or not in a complaint. I wrote the complaint. I'm like, you can't make this stuff up.
That's crazy.
It doesn't. And why would you treat people? You're trying to get women in the FBI. Why would you treat them like that?
So who does the checks and balances for the FBI?
There are no checks and balances.
That's the problem. Yes,
there is an OIG, but the OIG, only time the OIG really gets involved is if it's a whistleblower complaint, and it has to go through a process. It's 5 to 7 years it'll take to come out of it.
Yeah, and those people who don't know what OIG is, Office of the Inspector General.
Yes. Yeah. Now most departments have an OIG that oversees the whole department.
Right.
The FBI only has it for one particular purpose. Here's you would think. By 2012, they already knew I was a kind of a dangerous guy for the Bureau. There was just no doubts about that. But They actually put me into internal affairs, what they call now internal affairs. So they gave me internal affairs, and my son's behind me. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
And they put me in internal affairs and taught me how everything worked. Oh my God, it's awesome.
They armed you. Yeah.
Yes, but no one gets it. The bosses don't get in trouble.
Right.
The bosses all get, in order for a boss to get in trouble, the punishment has to be over 14 days. So if they punish him for 13 days of suspension, he doesn't serve the suspension. He or she doesn't serve it. So that's what they do. They set it up, and here's why. Because theoretically, the reason is because if you do less than 14 days, it's like taking a vacation.
Right.
And it's like taking a vacation, and you still get the same pay. That being said, they should remove them from the job.
Right.
Once you get punished, because all agents can only be in until you're 57. Now they're hiring these guys, and they are turning them into contractors so they can stay longer than 57. You don't want anybody in the FBI staying longer than 57. I promise you. Cow. Yeah, so they're working around this by hiring people back as contractors and giving them extensions. Give extensions to GS-13s who are senior agents. Don't give them to SESers or executives. The other thing about the FBI is there are no political appointees except for the director.
Right.
The director gets to spend 10 years. But the whole thing is everything's within the FBI. It is like going to some inbred camp that's been around for 100 years in the desert. That's the problem. The executives all know each other. It's a protection system.
Sounds like Scientology is what it sounds like.
Now why you insulted Scientology?
Right.
No, because the Scientology they don't have as many guns.
No, true, true.
Scientology doesn't have the power that the FBI has.
That brings me to another question. So the IRS is hiring something like I can't remember how many thousands of new agents, IRS agents, and arming them. Did you hear about that as well?
You know, IRS has two types of what I would call agents.
Uh-huh.
They have the armed version and they have the unarmed version. Now, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you a secret about the armed version. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
IRS agents that are armed are allergic to tax cases.
Really?
They don't do it. Yes. They don't
They
want
just
to
do
do it.
organized crime or racketeering.
Yes, and
Gotcha.
or money laundering. They don't want
Gotcha.
to have anything to do with tax cases. So if they hire 50,000 that are armed, the country's not going to have a single extra tax case. The best people I worked with were IRS agents on OC cases, on organized crime cases, because of that. They'll
Right.
work really hard. They just will not do a tax case to save their life.
Yeah,
They can do them.
I was curious about that because when I heard about that, I was like, they have to be racketeering and organized crime specific agents.
They're not. They're supposed to be doing. What they're supposed to be doing is you bring in an IRS agent, and they're supposed to look at the tax
Right.
issues and do the tax aspects of the case. I spent 24 years in, I used IRS agents all the time, never had a single tax issue come up with them. They never even mention it. In fact, you wouldn't know. They actually are task force. They're usually in our task forces, and they say, "I'm with the IRS. I'm with the IRS," because they don't want to get, not because they're embarrassed by the IRS, because they don't want to do tax cases.
Right. Right.
And they're really good. Let's compare that to postal inspectors. Postal inspectors will in fact do postal cases,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go online and you can watch where, you know, if you watch those First Amendment auditors that come and they like show video, they take out a video camera in a post office or police station, and the cops come and they harass them, type
Right.
of thing. Videotaping people in public is legal.
Mm-hmm.
Videotaping cops is constitutionally protected. But you'll see the postal employees, if you go to a post office and you take out a video camera, they'll call a postal inspector or postal inspector, and they will come and they will most likely tell you, oh, he's allowed to film. It's public. It's federal property. It's public, and they know the rules.
Right.
A lot of the police officers don't,
Right.
but those guys do know the rules, and it's legal to film in there. It's actually on the board. So I have the highest respect, but they will do you mess with the post, you will find some wrath going on there with the postal inspectors. You don't want to mess with them. IRS, commit all the tax fraud you want. Don't worry about it. Racketeering, you're a dead man, because the IRS will do all the books for you. They'll do it for the agents. FBI, they will do every single spreadsheet will be done by the IRS, and they'll all be perfect.
So people were freaking out when they heard about the IRS hiring all these armed agents. It shouldn't be citizens who are worried. It should be organized crime and the crime families in New York that are worried.
Yeah, well, yes, but my guess is there's not that many. I don't think there's 2,000 or 3,000 armed agents. They're going to hire auditors. There's another word, there's another term. Sit there and do tax cases all day long. They'll never leave their desk. They just what they do is they do dialing for dollars.
Right.
So they'll call you up, say, hey,
Threaten
you got a problem, you know, let's work out a deal. And if you talk to them up front, they get rated how many cases they settle. So if you could settle with them up front, but not too early, but early enough that you don't get out of their hands, you probably will get the best deal you can. And they're good. They're good people. I had a lot of luck with them, because if there's charges to be made, it may be better to have a tax charge against somebody than another charge, and so that it's because it's administrative. It really
That's
is.
negotiable too.
Yes, and so rather than getting some charge that may affect someone's life, I did one of my whistleblower cases, and it turned out went really far south because I'm a very, very gentle lawyer. I always grant continuances. I always ask, agree to things that the government wants, because it's just decency. They don't do the same to me. But I had one case that went south, and then I went to town on them, baseball bat in the back in the woodshed, and really beat the living daylights out of them. And then almost 2 months to the day, I got a refund for my, this is last year, got a refund for 2015 taxes.
Oh, wow.
Now, what are the chances that that was a coincidence that someone called up the IRS and said, "Can you audit him for the last 10 years?"
Right.
and they give me a $2,600 refund. Like, what?
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, or they could lock me up. We locked the guy up for $400 of tax fraud. That criminal. Whatever. Just to harass the people. And I said that's not fair.
Right.
That's stuff that should not ever happen in the FBI. And do I think it happened? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
All it takes is a phone call. It's not a big conspiracy. I always laugh when people tell me it's a conspiracy. Wait, a conspiracy is an agreement between two people to do something that may be try to stick someone or illegal. Yeah, it's a conspiracy. We do them all the time.
Right.
I conspire with my wife against my kids all the
Constantly.
time. Yeah, that's what marriage is about with kids. But okay, so let's go to now we go to Twitter. Twitter was a problem.
Mhm.
So look at Mar-a-Lago. Trump had classified material at Mar-a-Lago, right? Maybe.
Right.
Let's, for the sake of argument.
But how many presidents could be or would be guilty of the same thing?
Well, wait. Let's compare. Let's not. Why don't we compare him to the executives on the 7th floor?
Oh, true.
We don't have to go back to the presidents.
Right.
Okay. How many of those documents were leaking? Were transmitting outside that safe?
Exactly.
I mean, if you're going to charge the president for doing this, and you're not going to charge your 2 senior executives
For carrying cell phones in a skiff. Right.
Well, that's what do you think's more dangerous?
Absolutely. I would worry about the skiff, not the president.
I know. Yeah, if he had I mean, I always laugh with the 100+ pages of documents.
Right.
I have to. I mean, there have been plenty of executives who have walked out with. There's actually a way. There's actually a way of transporting classified material, and it's.
Right.
But they have been left in bathrooms. They have been left on trains. They've been stolen. Malfeasance. I think they had an FBI agent in Kansas City who was charged with. She was like hoarding records from the FBI. She literally was taking all kinds of records home and just stacking them. She wasn't giving them to anybody.
Just
she was
to do
literally
it.
she was just a hoarder. I mean, literally, and she went to jail. I think she went to jail or she got convicted, but she had tons of them. And if I look at the threat, I think the threat posed by Director Wray and his staff is significantly higher than the threat posed by Trump.
Right.
I think if Trump, but again, here's not where they're going to get him. It's classified material that may or may not work on a jury. It's the 1001, the false statement against the federal agents or to the federal prosecutors. That's where they'll get him. Because that's easy enough to prove. Oh, they lied to us. Right. And this is why 10 years ago I would say talk to an agent, but now I mean, and I'm not the only agent who's saying this, is you really need to have an audio or video, a tape of the conversation and or a lawyer passing the information along, because if you said, the sky's blue outside as part of investigation and it wasn't, it was more cloudy, that's a false statement, you're chargeable.
Right.
And sometimes it's nuanced, and they charge people with that, and that, by the way, is a felony. If
they were talking about that when I signed the OIA, when I was working as an informant, and they really emphasized the fact of, if you say anything that might be untrue during this operation, we can come back years later and get you for lying to a federal officer. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that, but why are you focusing so much on that piece of the pie? Well, they do that.
Yeah, but but they're telling you up front. What they're doing is they're scaring you to make sure you tell the truth.
Right.
That's and honestly, that's a good idea. That way, you're not gonna. Because I don't care if you tell me bad information. Hey, by the way, got some bad news. He's innocent.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, I mean, I don't want people to make stuff up for me in the FBI.
Right.
So do they charge a lot of sources for that? No. They do on the drug arena, because drugs is where people lie, cheat, and steal. Right. Every informant informant. I use the word informant. only when it relates to drugs and those transactional, because they are true informants. The
Right.
rest of the people are really human sources,
Right.
because you could be a source for anything. If in your building, the informants are only used for particular items and nothing else, because they can't be used for anything else.
Right.
That's a big difference. But I mean, the fact that they're scaring you to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, good. That's
Right.
where you want to be, and you want to tell the FBI. Then you want to tell the FBI agents, okay, but if you lie to me, what happens?
Exactly. They always told me it's a two-way street and it's a relationship. And I was like, this street only
No,
has one lane. It only goes one way.
the bus goes one way. That's right. Yeah,
Right.
that's the bus. No, that they're allowed to. Law enforcement is allowed to test veracity by providing false statements. You see my son in the background. They're allowed. They do that. There's a reason to do that.
Mhm.
I think it's gotten out of hand to some degree if agents are lying about everything.
Mhm.
Now that's where we come to the Trump stuff, because I don't. One is the president of the United States for something like this probably should never do it. Time. I think the president. If I was Biden, I would give him. I would just let him go. Just give
Right.
him, get immunity. Give him whatever paper it is to say goodbye. Why does it matter? The man. Everyone's gonna know what happened.
Right.
If you prosecute him, he may come back and be a good candidate.
Mhm.
Why test that? And you don't gain the U.S. gains nothing from it except a lot of vitriolic feelings. Now I have a harp playing. Please don't play the harp here. Thank you.
To
If
me, it seemed more like the Salem witch trials. It was like they were trying to find anything and everything, and
Yeah.
they just latched on to that classified material. But I mean, coming from the intelligence community and knowing that there's been classified documents and whole envelopes left at bus stops
Yes.
before,
Yes.
and we're going to try to get this guy for classified information because he's a president. Forget about all the other stuff, all the other informants you've put, in danger because you've left files just sitting around, but we're going to go after the president.
I'm not upset about that. I'm upset about Trump that he killed Soleimani or ordered
Right.
the hit on Soleimani. Not that he had a bunch of shit in his
Right.
I mean, it's the whole idea. He left it in a room, and yeah, people can look at it, but it's really the documents. They're problematic. If he had a reason to have them,
Mhm.
then I would want to know what those reasons are, why he kept stuff. I mean, I would want to have, I would probably say, if you DOJ explain to me, we'll give you a non-pros if you explain why you took all this stuff, so we understand why this stuff was valuable. No, the greatest documents in the world are beautiful. They belong in Trump Palace. But why did you take these? What did they give you?
Right.
That would be more important, because that's what they do for people that are spies. They
Right.
give them breaks if they disclose what happened, and it allowed us to do a damage assessment.
Damage control. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that the damage assessment's huge. That way and plus to look at and say, is anything missing?
And
who
he
was
may
here?
he may turn around and tell him, look, I took the papers because I knew this was going to happen.
Yes. That's the problem. Is that
Yeah.
the best defense is, hey, by the way, the FBI is corrupt. That they're
Right.
out to get me, so I needed these as leverage. How do you? That's outrageous. Best one. If you go down to Miami, the former SAC down in Miami had to resign, and then there were allegations that he was giving a quid pro quo or something short of that to a person that was like the sheriff, because the sheriff was African American and he wanted to be the first person to arrest an African American. And I'm not sure, for all that, what that is. I understand the thought process on that.
Mhm.
It may not be a quid pro quo. It's like, look, you finally have one African American there, and okay, the guy screwed up.
Right.
Do I necessarily want to charge him, or but that's a discussion you have with the U.S. Attorney's office.
Right.
And then you bring the guy in and you tell him, look, this is the problem. You need to fix this. There's actually civil ways of going through of fixing things.
You know, when you're in a serious situation, when you walk into the U.S. Attorney's office and Department of Justice sitting there with the U.S. Attorney's office and the Secret Service, that's when you know shit's about to hit the fan.
Yeah. Well, know what you do with that? You walk over and you sit right next to the U.S. Attorney. You go,
Right.
you sit down right next to him, and then you understand about how afraid you are. And then you look at him, you look at their papers. So
Right.
that's the technique you use. Have no boundaries. It goes, where you going? Or you sit at the head of the table. You don't sit, never sit across the room. Always
No.
sit right next to him, because that just drives them nuts. And then ask your attorney to sit on the other side, and then look at him and say, how you doing? I'm so happy to meet you.
Yeah, I think at my table I had the U.S. Attorney, the head of the U.S. Attorney's office in Houston to my left, and then my lawyer immediately to my right. So it was like I could see the paperwork there and I could see the paperwork here, but then you had Department of Justice and a bunch of other people in the room
All
too.
around.
Yeah.
That's just that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
That's when every seat in the room is taken by the other side. You're lucky you're walking out of there with your head. I mean, really,
Right.
There's no good that comes from that.
No.
Like, you look at you look at your lawyer, and your lawyer's looking awfully small, right? You look at him, he doesn't look that big. Everybody else have big heads in there, and they're all looking pretty tough, and your lawyer is looking, well,
I
little
think what saved me though is my lawyer was David Adler, the former CIA
Yeah.
agent that got the guy out of prison that I guess got arrested for selling explosives to I guess Libya during that whole arms scandal.
Yes.
So they arrested him and put him in prison, and then my lawyer got him out because he still had a clearance with CIA and at Langley, and was able to get all the information and show it to the judge that hey, he was working for CIA. So I mean, he was a great lawyer. But what I found interesting was when we hit the elevator after the meeting with the U.S. Attorney's office, the U.S. Attorney's office handed him a folder of images to analyze because he still works for the U.S. Attorney's office as a consultant.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, I got a pretty good, good lawyer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's everyone needs a part-time job, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yes. So there are clearly insiders
Right.
inside the government, and Trump is an outsider.
Right.
So that is Trump's problem.
Do you think it'll damage his ability to run effectively in 2024?
I don't think he will.
You don't think so?
No, I hate to say it. I think that a lot of the stuff he's doing right now. I mean, did you see the baseball cards?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's your big announcement. Oh my God. I mean, the baseball cards you can launder money with. I mean,
right.
And meanwhile, Bitcoin and all the cryptocurrencies are going down, turning into garbage, and he's pushing another form of non-fungible stuff.
NFTs.
Yeah, I mean that's what money laundering is made of. I mean, is that type of non-fungible stuff.
Oh, for sure.
So what do I think? I think you're only doing that if you're looking for money. Hey, he's the president. I mean, Billy Carter made a lot of money on his Billy Bear and other stuff, and you're allowed to profit. I mean, I think Obama has done fairly well since he's come out. I saw his house. It's like, wow, you are doing very well on Nantucket, or not Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so what do I? So I can't hold that against the presidents, because they're allowed to have a life.
Yeah, and I mean, they don't get a ton of money after they leave the presidency.
No, I think they get their salary, right?
It's like $200,000 or $500,000 or something for the rest of their life. But
that's the presidential salary,
right? And that's not much when you put it in perspective with CEOs and like big tech and stuff like that.
That's a lot of money.
well, yeah, for you and I, but not for like Bezos or other CEOs of companies, right?
Oh yeah, well, I was going to tell you we gotta go back to the FBI. So the best video you can watch is the director of the FBI getting laid into over his airplane. Did you watch that one?
I heard about that.
Oh, it's wonderful, because the FBI director he left a congressional hearing because he had to catch a plane, but it was actually an FBI plane, a G5 was a Citation G5 that was waiting for him so he can go on vacation. So that's what he was doing, and forgot to tell the senator that, oh yeah, I'm waiting for my personal government jet to fly me. Now he responded by saying, well, I have to pay for those flights. I'm required by taking them. So he's required by FBI policy to have his plane. If I'm the director of FBI, I want that policy too. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I have to pay. He has to pay the flight. I guess someone looked at the flight. It would cost him $120 to take, because he has to pay at coach rate, not at the citation rate, at a coach rate.
Wow.
And it gets worse. It gets worse. So he left a statutory oversight meeting to go on vacation. Forgot to tell him he was going on vacation. Told him he has to leave. And then there's a protected disclosure by pilots to Congress. This is wonderful. Congress has already leaked this. You mean I know it's Congress is like they leak everything.
Yeah.
It's terrible. We only can hope they clamp it down. I was hoping they were going to be like an iron bear trap, but that's just not what they are. But the pilots made a disclosure that Ray doesn't like the commute to where his airplane is held at some secret spot, which is about 30 minutes or 45 minutes from where he works in traffic, a little more in traffic. So he has his airplane flown from, now you have Quantico, you have places around that have government aircraft, from his airfield that's very close to Reagan National. So he can go, and it costs $1,000 or more to land an airplane at Reagan National.
Right.
So he lands it there, so he doesn't have to do the commute, because he really doesn't like doing commuting. So that's how powerful he is, that he missed the commute. Now he's got 3 or 4 cars that are following him, and they got lights on him, because he's running off the side with the lights going on, so he can. But even that, that's, if I was a director, I'd be like, no man, I don't want to have the lights chasing people away. I look like a jerk. I want to just fly over to Reagan and then pay the extra $1,000 or $2,000 and then fly.
Right.
That's waste, fraud, and abuse. That's all that is.
Right.
It just I mean, and the fact that he would think like that says he's out of touch with what agents do. Now, I was in the Middle East, and I needed a flight. To go from the Middle East to the United States with one stop. And I couldn't get a G5 to fly it, which caused me a lot of problems, because what was being flown was not anything that you would want to fly in any other place.
Right.
I'm as an agent on the ground, I'm the one suffering because they can't use the G5. I want behavioral analysis to fly around in the G5. I want the SWAT team, the HRT, to fly around there. I don't want the director. The director's not that important. I mean, you think the director's making some life-changing minute by minute decision? No, you have he can use a cell phone.
He's a political pawn, basically.
Yeah, well, he's a political king, but he could do it anywhere. And he doesn't need to fly back there. He could literally, he has bosses in every field office that can run things. He doesn't fly to a field office and take charge. He has enough communication wherever he goes, including this, any of his permanent residences, that he could just do it from there. This is 2022 going on 23, and he doesn't need to fly that jet.
No.
But he's doing it because he can, and he made the policy. Him, and with the concurrence of DOJ, made the policy. And my guess is because there's probably 2 jets, and I'm guessing that the AG, now they used to share a jet, and they used to share a jet, and this was their fight between the Attorney General and the FBI director. Have nothing better to do than fight about who's driving the bicycle. Yeah, about the bicycle. That's right. They're 2 kids fighting over a bicycle, and so they used to have. This is Mueller's problem. The DOJ guy wants to use the airplane again. You mean the DOJ guy, the Attorney General? Yeah, well, he doesn't get to use it. I want to use it. Tell him go pound sand. Now, honestly, I actually think that the DOJ guy would actually be more important to fly around than the FBI guy, because the DOJ has a lot of different elements that would require that. Whereas the FBI has central location, they have their own command, they have their own communication.
Regional
he can
headquarters.
Sit in his office. Yes, he could take a flight. And by the way, if he wants, he probably can carry a gun.
Yeah, on
I mean,
commercial too.
yeah, and he has a whole hostage rescue team that a protection detail.
Yeah.
And Louis Free would take a train back to Connecticut and New York when he would go. Um, I don't see why Ray can't do that. I think it's a disgrace. If that protected disclosure is true, and I have no reason to doubt that it is, because it's coming from pilots. He should. We already had one. We already had one director that was forced to step down because of that type of political graft. So so Ray needs to go.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And I think that we're going to see a lot more coming out of this as time progresses. But I worry about 2024 because I think that with the FBI running unchecked and, all the turmoil that we've gone through over the past 10 years, 2024 is going to be a nightmare, I think.
Well, here's the good part about this. There is one check in there, and it's the agents. And
Right.
here's why. Because if you've dealt with enough of them, just because you tell an agent what to do doesn't necessarily mean he does it.
Right.
That's how pathetic this is. That the balance in the check is at the agent level when they tell somebody not to do something, and then that agent said they tell them do this, and they're like, yeah, okay.
Sure.
In Salt Lake City, we have one protected disclosure that went to Congress and has gone all around Congress, where DOJ sent an affidavit for a search warrant to a squad in Salt Lake City, and the supervisor of the squad gave it to two senior agents. They looked at it. They said this isn't right. They did the draft again, sent it back. They sent it back a few times, and the agent said that it doesn't really portray the group like we think it should portray them, and they removed the supervisor because
Wow.
he refused to order the agents to sign the affidavit. That's the kind of agents you need in the FBI.
Yeah.
That is your real FBI agent. The guy who got removed, he called me up. He got sent to the FBI's electric chair, which is located in CJIS, which is the Criminal Justice Information Center in West Virginia, which is where all good agents go to die. Because if you go there, if you get a temporary duty there, you're never coming out. Now, just funny enough that he goes there, and then I get this great story from about another SAC who's in another field office who decided he's going to handle the racial stuff like he should. So he puts out to his supervisors, I'm done with all this racial issues. From now on, no one's getting promoted in this office unless they're African American.
Oh my gosh.
So since my client's in the electric chair, they can't actually move this guy over there and get killed off. So they had to move him somewhere else. And you're like, where did you get these guys from?
That's crazy.
It doesn't take a lot to do this. That guy right there doesn't understand the job, so he needs to go. He needs to be put down.
Right.
He needs to be retrained, put down to a position, maybe one lower, and keep the same pay. Who cares? And just say, look, man, you're not cut out for that. You're not cut out for it. Now, in New York, they used to have something called the rubber room. In New York, they had the rubber gun squad, and they had the rubber room. And the rubber gun squad was for agents that were just lost their minds. Now, in New York City, agents commute. A lot of them commute 100 miles each way or more. I commuted 90 miles each way every day. Wow. So 180 miles. And I was about to lose my mind, and probably did several times. But other agents, I had one agent that was commuting from Massachusetts. And I would drive by, and he would have rocket packs on his car going down because he was going 100 miles an hour both ways home, because you have to. And he was on a SWAT team. So he was on the edge. Agents in New York sleep in the office. They will sleep in the office. But if you lose your mind in the FBI, you go to a rubber gun squad for a little while, which is a good thing to have. You get that cool blue gun. You could go do what you want, walk around for a few weeks or a few months, enjoy yourself. You still get paid, and then when you've recovered, you go back and no one cares, because a lot of people go in the rubber gun squad. In the They also have the rubber room for supervisors, where someone's deemed to be a supervisor who has no business being a supervisor. So he's assigned to the rubber room. Where's the rubber?
God.
So he's put there for until he either resigns and or able to stay in the room so long that he's deemed worthy of coming out and taking another job. But in New York, that's what they kind of handle their own thing, their own issues. For good or bad, but they're not firing the people right away, because a lot of guys, after 10 or 15 years of driving 200 miles a day and being put through all kinds of garbage, they lose their minds, and they just need a break, and they give it to them.
It totally makes sense. Well, Kurt,
yep, okay, we gave him too much time.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on. We've been on for 2 hours, so
I'm sorry.
This will be a great episode for the listeners. So this should make up for the fact I haven't done an episode for the last couple of weeks. So this should be good. But I appreciate it, Kurt. And
it's an honor.
We're gonna have to do another episode fairly quick, probably next month.
Perfect. So anytime. Awesome. It's an honor being here.
Awesome.
Thank you. Take care.
Give your family my best, and Happy New Year. And I'll follow up with you. If there's your son.
wave at my son. Wave. Oh, there you go.
What's up, buddy? Well, have a good night, Kurt, and I'll talk to you after the new year.
Enjoy yourself. Bye-bye.